Hey guys, welcome yet again to yet another home range poultry video. Now first and foremost, Merry Christmas to you guys, Happy New Year. We hope that in 2019 you'll be able actually to learn more from home range poultry and from Home Range TV on everything to do with poultry farming. So guys, on today's video, there's one question that a lot of guys have always been asking about, and it's this: what actually do you usually cover during your training days? So we decided to do a detailed video on all the topics that we actually cover during our training days, and we hope guys that these will actually be able to help you make the decision on whether the training could be of benefit to you. And I'm sure that there are some areas which you may not have thought of which are very critical for you to be a successful poultry farmer, and that's exactly what this video would actually be highlighting, what those areas are, and how we actually go about dealing with all those areas to make sure that when you leave our training, you're actually someone who has the knowledge to actually be able to go and be a successful poultry farmer once you understand all the things that we'll be talking about. So let's start off guys. So our training usually, first of all, for those guys who do not know, we actually do conduct at Home Range Poultry, we do conduct training every single month, once per month. We make sure that our training is on Saturdays. Now the training usually takes place from around 9 in the morning to around 5:36 p.m. in the evening. So it's a whole day training. It's a comprehensive training that basically covers everything to do with the rearing of the chicken, but more specifically the Kienyeji chicken. So we're going to discuss into great detail all the topics that we usually cover. Now during the training days, the training does not take place at a hotel or at some conference room somewhere. The training actually takes place physically at our farm. So guys, let's start off. So which are some of the topics that we actually cover during training days? Now one of the major important topics that we cover during training days is on the introduction bit. So we have to make sure that you are actually introduced to the area of poultry farming in a way that gives you an overview of exactly how the business is. So the first thing that we usually help you guys be able to understand during the introduction is how many birds should you actually start with. I mean, have you made that decision? It's a very critical decision, because once you actually understand how you actually make that decision, you will be able to start off at a better position, because some people do start off with a large number, and 1 month down the line, they've already given up on it. Yet there's also someone else who decides to start with the smallest number, only for them to realize, you know what, I wish I would have started with a much bigger number. So the question is between 50 and 1,000 or even 10,000, which is the right number for you to start with. So we help you make that decision during the training days by sharing quite a number of information on production costs. That is information that you need to have for you to be able to make a decision when you're starting off how many birds you should start with. We hope you be able to understand the various breeds which are in the market, because there are quite a number of breeds in the market. There is the curry improved Kienyeji chicken, which is we actually deal with exclusively at Home Range Poultry Farm. So when you're discussing this, you're able to understand why exactly did we decide to specialize in that kind of breed, and how is it of benefit to you understanding the breeds. We'll be able to discuss all these breeds, the Kuroilers, the Rainbow, the Curry Improved, Kenbro, and of course there's some of you who may decide you want to get into this business purely for purposes of eggs. So to help you be able to make a better decision whether you should keep any one of these or just the layers birds, we also discuss layers as a breed, for you to be able to understand what are the production costs between all these breeds, for you to be able to make a decision on which is the best for you to keep. You need to look for a bird which has the highest production but lowest cost of production. Still under introduction, we also discussed the issue to do with, first you've kept the chicken, so where do you sell them? So marketing is a very critical aspect that we like to discuss. You should be able to know how you should actually be able to access the market. How do you segment that market? How do you choose which product to deal with? That's another very critical aspect of which product should you settle in. Remember, in Kienyeji business, there are very many products that you can engage, could deal with a whole lot of things. So we actually give you a list of almost 10 items, which is still under poultry farming, which you can actually deal with and which are equally profitable. So you need to find out what those products are for you to see which is the best section for you to get into. The second topic that I actually discuss into much greater detail is on the aspects of hatching and incubation. This topic is very critical because when you are starting out, as you grow your business, you can't always rely on always sourcing chicks. So the best economical way to do it is actually start producing the chicks yourself. So there are a lot of critical factors which you need to understand on how to go about incubation and hatching quality chicks. So under this topic, we do discuss a lot of things. First of all, the type of eggs. What type of eggs should you incubate? What is the difference between these eggs that you incubate and the other ones for eating? You need to understand that, so that even if you decide to go into the business for selling eggs for consumption, there is a particular way which those eggs are supposed to be produced. Now if you decide to produce eggs for incubation, which you call the fertilized eggs, there's a particular way which those eggs are supposed to be produced and handled to make sure that you actually are able to achieve a high hatch rate. We also tell you how to actually produce quality fertilized eggs. What is the ratio of hens to cocks that you need to keep? How do you handle the eggs? How do you collect them? What do you do past after collection them? How long do you store them? How many days can you store the eggs before you load into the machine? And once you load into the machine, how often should you actually be checking up on them to make sure that everything is going okay? We also discuss with you how do you sometimes you have market segment which actually says that if you want to identify Kienyeji eggs, they must be yellow inside, the yellow yolk eggs. How do you produce the yellow yolk eggs? In Kenya also there are people who are misinformed to actually think that Kienyeji eggs must be whitish in color. So these aspects have to be discussed into great detail for you to be able to understand. Even when you actually go into the market and you encounter someone who's specifically looking for this, how do you actually produce eggs for them that have these characteristics of a yellow yolk and a whitish eggshell? That's very critical. We also tell you how do you select the eggs. As much as all eggs that you produce may be fertilized eggs, again, we don't go and incubate all of them. There has to be a process of selecting those eggs for you to determine which ones have a higher chance of hatching than others. So the ones that don't have a very low chance of hatching, those ones, of course, we don't go ahead and incubate them. The other topic that we also discuss into great detail is the equipment that you need to use for incubation and hatching. On some of our videos, we've already highlighted that, the setters, the hatchers, and there's also the aspect of you hear people talking about an incubator. What is an incubator? What is a setter? What is a hatcher? And it's actually, you actually see it physically at the farm, and you're able to get a physical demonstration to see how actually you're able to use all these equipment. And of course, there's the aspect of an incubator. What size should you start with? What power source should you concentrate on? And then there's the other aspect of, power goes out. What do you do? What is your power backup option? Which one of these is actually the best to use when you're setting up? There are other issues also to do with equipment which a lot of people may not be aware about, and it's about the quality of power that you actually get from the mains electricity. Now you find that quality of power sometimes it does decline, and you get a surge, and sometimes that surge can come and destroy all your equipment. So how do you protect yourself against all these things? Of course, most importantly, finally, are the settings that you actually input on all these equipments for you to be able to set the equipment in a manner that it's actually able to produce for you a high number of eggs or a high number of chicks. And of course, finally, there are those people who may opt not to go with equipment for incubation and hatching. So we also do discuss what you usually call the natural brooding. Natural brooding is actually where you actually use just your hen to be able to hatch chicks, and we'll look at the various factors and the things that you actually need to provide for your hen for you to be able to give you a high quality number of chicks once it hatches. The third topic that we also now from there that we discuss is that when you've already learned how to hatch the chicks, now the next topic is how do you take care of this chick. So on topic number 3, we discuss the aspect of brooding, and this is now where we come and actually discuss into great detail aspects to do with how do you build. First of all, what is the importance, what is the importance of brooding? Then the next thing that we'll discuss is how to actually build and set up a brooder. A step-by-step build and set up a brooder. We'll also discuss what are all the things, the tools and equipments that you actually need. What type of drinkers do you use from day 1 to day 10? What type of feeders do you use? What kinds of blah, 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 all these things that you actually need to know when you're setting up your brooder. The heat source that you actually use for your brooder, which is the most economic heat source should you use for your brooder, because various heat sources have their own challenges. There are some that may be very safe, but they may be very expensive. Okay, so again, that would not make sense for you to use, because the whole point of poultry business is to try to reduce the cost of production. That way you're able to make a profit once you go ahead and sell your product. So you must look for a heat source effective in terms of its operations and being able to provide the heat, but also effective in terms of the cost, the price. Okay, you must use an option which is actually affordable for you, and that one that is also expensive, that it actually takes your cost of production up. Then we usually have something that we usually call the daily chick brooding management schedule. This is basically giving you an outline of everything that you're supposed to do to your chicks from when they are hatched from day 1 all the way to day 30. Every single day there are things which you're supposed to do in the brood and for your chicks for you to make sure that they actually achieve optimum growth. But there are also other issues to do with the water and the feed that you actually give this chick as they grow. Every single day, what exactly are you supposed to do? There's an issue to do with the troubleshooting. Most of the biggest challenges with a lot of people is that you find that they usually get a lot of mortality for chicks when they are growing up. So we need to understand what causes chick mortality and how actually do you eliminate that or address that matter. And then of course, you have to know how most importantly to prevent mortality happening in the first place. So once you actually understand all these aspects in the brooding section, you will actually be at a better position to be able to rear your birds, especially your chicks, and make sure that very few of them die, if any at all, during the brooding stage. Now remember guys, for you to be a successful poultry farmer, you must make sure that you don't lose more than 20% of your flock from when they are day 1 to when they get to 5 months. So once you finish up with the brooding session, now we get into a very, very critical section, which has to do with what? With feeding of your birds. Feeding is a very critical aspect when it comes to poultry farming, because the quality of the chicks that you produce, the weight gain for your birds and the general health of your bird is actually linked to the feeding aspect. So it's very critical for you to understand the feeding aspect for your own benefit and to make sure that you actually achieve optimum production from your birds. Now, when it comes to feeding, these are the things that you actually discuss. The first thing is that we do an introduction to feeding, okay? The basic poultry nutrition. Which are the nutritional section, the carbohydrates, the proteins, the vitamins, all these things. Which are those elements that actually the chicken wants, and which are actually the sources of all these nutrients. And these we actually discuss with mind. We have the person who is going to go ahead and they want to just make their own small amount of feed for their 10-20 birds at home, and they want to use materials which are basically available around your homestead. How do you go ahead and mix, or rather formulate, quality feeds from things which are around your homestead for your birds? So the other critical aspect, of course, is on the ingredients that are used in commercial feeds. We'll discuss each and every, and if you've watched one of our previous videos, which we'll post a link down here for you to be able to look at it. Now, on that video, we show you how to actually make commercial feeds or high quality feeds for your birds right at home. And this is a critical aspect because we discuss the ingredients and you're actually able to see physically how the ingredients look like. First, when it comes to the ingredients, there are also the aspects of testing of the ingredients to determine on the quality. So we'll tell you how you handle that part, because you find, you may go and source for ingredients, and very many people actually have adulterated ingredients, which if you use for your feeds, again, you'll be making low quality feeds. Some ingredients actually need to break down further for you to be able to make, for example, chick mash. The other aspect that we discuss are the types of feeds. And under this category, this is when we'll come and discuss the chick mash and how to actually produce chick mash. We'll discuss the growers mash and how to actually produce the growers mash, and of course we'll discuss the layers mash and how to actually be able to produce it. And all these feeds will tell you about the age of feeding the birds, what do you feed your chicken at a particular age, and most importantly also the quantities that you actually give to the birds. What amount of feed is sufficient for a chick? What amount of feed is sufficient for a big bird? What amount of feed is actually sufficient for a chicken that is about 2 months? So all these to do with the quantity of feeds, and we give you in terms of the amount of grams per bird per day. So that if, let's say, you have about 120 birds, using that figure, you're actually able to calculate how much feed your birds should be consuming in a day. So this is very critical. The other very important aspect that we discussed to do with the feeding is the feed formulation. Now, I know that most of the guys who've already watched that video to do with the making of the feeds, the one question that you always have is, do you have the formulation? Yes, we do have the formulation for making each one of these, because as much as I'll tell you the ingredients and which nutritional category they provide, you really need to know how much of, for example, carbohydrates should be in chick mash, how much of carbohydrates should be in growers mash, how much of layers mash. So we actually give you a formulation that has already summarized all that, and we tell you, for example, if it's maize you're going to be using, milled maize, in your chick mash, how much should you put in your chick mash, how much should you put in your growers mash, how much should you put in your layers mash? Because for sure, the quantity that you put for each ingredient is very different based on the type of feed which you're making. And the beauty about this section to do with the formulation is that you may actually just decide, you know what, instead of actually doing the birds themselves, you can concentrate on actually producing high quality feed and being able to supply the farmers and the people around you, and you should actually be able to still make some money from that, especially if you produce high quality feed. The other topic that we actually discuss also during feeding, during our training days, which is very critical, is on poultry diseases. And poultry diseases is a very critical unit. If you don't know anything about poultry diseases, you are going to suffer some massive losses. There are people who started off poultry farming on a good note. They've made all the necessary step, but then a disease comes and wipes them off, and all the birds die, and you're back to square zero. And they do it over and over again, and all these losses could actually be averted simply by you understanding issues to do with poultry diseases even before you venture into the poultry business. When it comes to poultry diseases, we like to discuss quite a number of diseases. We will give you about 10 common poultry diseases. All these various diseases that your chicken are actually going to deal with, you need to know about them. So we give you 10 of them. The name of that disease, we discuss it. We discuss what type. Is it a bacterial disease? Is it a viral disease? Because once you understand those two aspects of whether it is a bacterial disease or a viral disease, you're actually able to know how to prevent that disease and how to manage it in the incidences that is a disease that can be managed. So we also discussed the 3 main symptoms for every disease. Now, you find that for most diseases, just like in a human being, for example, if you have malaria or you're just having a bad stomach, you ate something bad, you find that you have lack of appetite. Okay, so that does not really distinguish that disease. To be able to identify what disease it is, we have to go further and look at what are the specifics of this disease. So for us, what we do is that we have identified 3 main symptoms for every disease, which you are actually able to give you. Each and every one of these 10 diseases has at least 2 or 3 main symptoms, which now we discuss with you and tell you these are the main symptoms for this disease. And once you understand that, you also need to understand how is the disease spread. So that to stop the continuous spread of the disease and causing mortality. So it's very important for you to understand how is the disease spread. It's also very critical for you to understand how to treat the disease. And this happens for diseases which can be treated. Some diseases can't be treated. So the question then is, fine, they can't be treated, but I have the disease. So how do you manage it? Some diseases, you find that the only way for you to prevent the disease is that you find that, for example, some of the ways to prevent a disease through vaccination. So how do you go ahead and actually discuss this aspect to do with vaccination? So now, guys, remember always when we discuss diseases, that they're actually experts to do with diseases, and these are called the vets. Okay, you should always have a vet in your phone, on your hand, someone you can always call to your farm, who can actually be able to give you expert advice on these things. So the information that we really give you is just to be able to help you understand that once a vet comes, you need to understand what they are talking about, because you will not be able to assist each other, or you will also not be able to give them the correct information to assist you and advise you on what to do when you have no idea what disease you're talking about. Every time that you need an expert opinion on diseases, all advice should actually be given by a certified veterinary officer. So always contact one, and they should be able to guide you in the right direction. The last topic that we like to discuss is on the aspect of farm management and record keeping. Farm management is a very important aspect in record keeping. So if you don't manage your farm correctly, of course it's going to fail. Now, when it comes to farm management, there are issues to do with labor issues. What should you look out for an employee? How much should you even pay them? Very critical factors that you need to understand. How many employees do you actually need for a particular farm? Let's say you have 400 birds. Let's say you have 50 birds. How many employees do you actually need for your farm? The other issues has to do with the capital. How much money do you actually need to start the farm? How much money do you actually need to run the farm? The other aspect that is also very important is the issue to do with the records. What kind of records should you maintain for your farm? Is the production record. There are records such as the farm master logs. So what does the farm master logs actually entail? What information is contained in that farm master logs, and why is it important for you to maintain that? So all these records, issues to do with the feed consumed, you must have a record that actually shows the amount of feed that your birds are consuming, and that will be able to help you make quite a number of very critical decisions. For example, one, are your birds being underfed, or are they even being overfed, or is someone stealing from you? So guys, I hope now we've given you an overview of basically what is actually covered during our training days. I know you're very curious and you want to attend the next training. So remember, like I said, we do 1 training per month, every single month. Now, to get details of our training, you could actually visit our website, www.homerangepoultry.com, or you could just simply SMS the word training to 0727 200 116 or 0786 942 052, and our system will send you the details for the upcoming training. The process for booking is still on the system, so it's very easy for you to book. So apart from that, guys, if there's any other topic that you feel we've not mentioned and you want to be discussed during our training days, post it on the comment section. We'll have a look at it and we'll try and incorporate it to our training days. Also, don't forget, guys, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Click on the button on the left of this video. That will keep you posted on all the new videos that we actually post to do with poultry farming. Make sure you also watch all the past videos that we posted on Homerange TV or the Homerange Poultry Farm YouTube channel. And most importantly, guys, keep watching.